Have you noticed your shoes feeling tighter at night? Your face slightly puffier in the morning? Or a strange heaviness in your lower back that you've been quietly blaming on just getting older? What if I told you those subtle signs could mean your kidneys have already lost up to half of their filtering power, silently without pain, without a single dramatic warning? Every year in the United States, hundreds of thousands of adults are diagnosed with declining kidney function, and most of them say the same thing: I had no idea. By the time routine blood work shows a problem, the damage has often been building for years because after the age of 50, your kidneys can lose about 1% of their function every single year, and 1% sounds small until you realize that over a decade, that's a slow, quiet erosion of your body's natural filtration system. I'm Dr. Richard Hale, and I need you to understand something that isn't talked about. Nearly enough kidney decline is not just about drinking more water or cutting back on salt. It's about the microscopic blood vessels inside your kidneys slowly stiffening, narrowing and starving your filters of the circulation they desperately need to survive. And if that process continues unchecked, it doesn't just lead to abnormal lab numbers, it leads to fatigue, swelling, rising blood pressure, and for some, the terrifying word no one wants to hear: dialysis. But here's the part that changes everything. In the next few minutes, I'm going to show you a clear science-backed strategy that targets the real root of kidney decline, restoring blood flow at the microvascular level, and I'll walk you through the specific beverages that can either quietly accelerate damage or help your kidneys recover measurable filtration power. Because once you see how simple this shift can be, you'll never look at your morning drink the same way again. Most people think kidney failure is loud. It isn't. It's quiet. It's subtle. It shows up as slightly tighter shoes, a little puffiness under the eyes, a kind of fatigue you blame on age or stress. And that is exactly why it's dangerous. After the age of 50, your kidneys lose about 1% of their filtering capacity every single year. 1% sounds harmless, almost insignificant, until you realize that over 10 to 15 years, that slow erosion can silently cut your filtration power by 20 to 30% before you ever feel a dramatic symptom. What's actually happening inside your body is not dramatic pain or sudden collapse. It's microcirculatory decline. Your kidneys are packed with millions of microscopic filters called glomeruli, each one dependent on a steady flow of oxygen-rich blood. As we age, the tiny vessels feeding those filters begin to stiffen. Nitric oxide production drops. Blood flow slows. And when perfusion drops, filtration drops. Over time, that reduced flow leads to microscopic scarring, what we call microfibrosis, gradually shrinking functional kidney tissue. A 2022 review in nephrology research confirmed that reduced renal microcirculation is one of the earliest measurable predictors of chronic kidney decline, even before creatinine levels spike. In other words, damage begins long before your lab work waves a red flag. Let me tell you about Daniel, a 58-year-old contractor who came to see me convinced he was just getting older. His blood pressure was borderline. His lab numbers were technically within range, but he felt different. Heavy in the mornings, slight swelling in his ankles at night. When we checked his estimated filtration rate, it had dropped to 62. Not catastrophic, but not optimal. He was shocked. He said, "I drink water all day. I cut back on salt. I thought I was doing everything right." And that's when I explained something most people never hear. Hydration alone doesn't fix circulation. You can pour water through a hose all day, but if the hose is narrowed and stiff, pressure never reaches the end. Here's the viral truth no one talks about: enough kidney decline isn't primarily a hydration problem. It's a blood flow problem. It's perfusion. It's nitric oxide. When microvessels lose flexibility, your kidneys don't receive enough blood to filter efficiently. A landmark clinical study showed that improving nitric oxide availability can increase renal blood flow by up to 30% in adults with mild impairment. That's not a supplement gimmick. That's vascular physiology. And if blood flow can decline silently, it can also be restored intentionally. Now, I want to ask you something directly. Have you ever noticed darker urine even though you drink plenty of water? Have you felt that dull lower back heaviness and brushed it off? If that's you, leave a comment below. I read them, because the earlier you recognize these signs, the more control you still have. The algorithm may not care about your kidneys, but you should. The real danger isn't the 1% per year. It's the accumulation of that 1% layered on top of unnoticed microvascular damage. Because once scarring progresses, recovery becomes harder. And here's where most people make the biggest mistake. They double down on water, but they never address the underlying decline in nitric oxide in circulation. But simply understanding this silent decline is not enough, because there's another factor even more dangerous than dehydration, and it's hiding in the way your blood vessels respond to certain foods and compounds. And once you see how one specific natural compound can boost kidney blood flow by over 30% in a matter of days, you'll realize the solution was never about drinking more. It was about restoring flow. If kidney decline is truly a blood flow problem, then the next question becomes obvious: what can safely increase circulation to those microscopic filters without medication? And this is where most people are shocked, because one of the most powerful natural boosters of renal blood flow isn't a pill. It's something you've probably eaten at a summer barbecue: watermelon and ginger. Now stay with me, because this isn't about a trendy detox juice. It's about a specific amino acid called citrulline. Watermelon is one of the richest natural sources of L-citrulline, and inside your body, citrulline converts into arginine, and arginine converts into nitric oxide, the very molecule your aging kidneys are desperately lacking. When nitric oxide levels rise, blood vessels relax, capillaries widen, perfusion improves. It's the difference between trying to water a garden through a kinked hose versus a fully open line. A 2019 study published in the American Journal of Hypertension found that L-citrulline supplementation improved renal blood flow by approximately 33% in adults with mild kidney impairment. 33%. That is not subtle. That is measurable vascular change. And here's the part most YouTube videos leave out: the effect can begin within days, because nitric oxide signaling happens fast. I remember a patient, Maria, 61 years old, who started drinking fresh watermelon blended with a small amount of ginger in the afternoon instead of sugary snacks. Within a week, she told me something interesting. "My urine looks lighter," she said, "and my lower back doesn't feel as heavy." Now, was that magic? No. It was perfusion. When blood reaches kidney tissue more efficiently, filtration improves. When filtration improves, waste clears more effectively. And when waste clears, the body feels lighter. Ginger adds another layer most people underestimate. Ginger contains gingerols compounds shown to reduce inflammatory cytokines, the chemical messengers that contribute to microscarring inside kidney tissue. So while watermelon helps open the vessels, ginger helps calm the inflammatory environment. One supports flow, the other protects structure. That combination matters. Let me ask you something directly. Have you ever noticed that your energy dips hard around 3 p.m. and you reach for coffee or something sweet? What if instead you chose something that actually supports your kidneys while boosting circulation? Drop a comment if you've ever tried watermelon juice before. I'm curious how many of you have overlooked something this simple. But here's the key detail that makes this work in real life: timing and freshness. Citrulline degrades after juicing. It's most effective when consumed fresh. Blend 2 cups of watermelon with a small piece of ginger, drink it immediately, and let the vascular signaling do its work. Simple, affordable, accessible, and backed by physiology, not hype. And yet, as powerful as watermelon and ginger can be, there's a limitation. Nitric oxide improves flow, but it doesn't directly shield the glomeruli from oxidative stress. And oxidative damage is one of the silent accelerators of kidney decline that most people never consider. So while boosting circulation is essential, it's only half the equation. But simply knowing how to increase blood flow isn't enough, because there's another factor quietly attacking your kidney filters at the cellular level, and most people are drinking something every day that could either protect or worsen that damage without them realizing it. Boosting blood flow is powerful, but blood flow alone does not guarantee protection. Because even when circulation improves, your kidney filters are still under constant attack from something far more aggressive: oxidative stress. And this is where the conversation shifts from simply opening vessels to shielding the glomeruli themselves. Parsley, lemon, and ginger. Not as a garnish, not as a flavor enhancer, but as a protective trio. Parsley contains a compound called apigenin, a flavonoid studied for its ability to suppress oxidative pathways inside kidney tissue. Specifically, apigenin has been shown to inhibit NADPH oxidase, one of the enzymes responsible for generating reactive oxygen species that damage glomerular cells. In animal and human models of early kidney stress, reduction of oxidative markers has been associated with up to a 37% decrease in glomerular injury progression. That number matters because glomeruli do not regenerate easily once scarred. Let me tell you about Carol, 63 years old, retired school administrator. Her labs were stable but trending downward year after year. Nothing alarming, just a slow slide. She told me, "I feel like I'm aging faster than I should." What we focused on wasn't more water. It wasn't aggressive supplements. It was lowering the oxidative burden on her kidneys. She began drinking a simple infusion, fresh parsley steeped lightly, lemon squeezed in small slice of ginger, added for anti-inflammatory support. Within 3 months, her filtration rate stabilized for the first time in 4 years. Stable, not declining. That was the win. Here's why this combination works synergistically. Lemon provides vitamin C, a potent antioxidant that helps recycle nitric oxide and protect endothelial cells lining your kidney vessels. Ginger reduces inflammatory cytokines such as TNF-alpha and IL-6, both implicated in microvascular kidney damage. Parsley, through apigenin, directly interferes with oxidative signaling at the cellular level. One supports the vessel wall, one calms inflammation, one shields the filter. Together, they create an environment where perfusion improvements from the previous step are less likely to be undone by cellular stress. Now, I want to pause and ask you something. Have you ever assumed that because your blood work says normal, everything inside is fine? Comment stable below if you've ever heard that word from your doctor and felt unsure what it really meant. Because stable decline is still decline. And oxidative stress is one of the quiet drivers behind that slow downward slope. The algorithm may reward flashy detox claims, but physiology rewards protection at the microscopic level. When oxidative stress decreases, glomerular cells survive longer. When they survive, longer filtration remains efficient. And when filtration remains efficient, blood pressure, energy, and fluid balance stabilize more naturally. But here's the part most people miss. Reducing oxidative stress does not automatically eliminate the deeper inflammatory signals that build up over decades. Because beyond circulation and beyond oxidation, there is another layer happening inside aging kidneys, chronic low-grade inflammation that slowly hardens tissue from the inside out. And just knowing how to improve blood flow and lower oxidative damage still isn't enough, because there is an inflammatory trigger, even more persistent and far more dangerous, that we need to address next. Lowering oxidative stress is critical, but if inflammation continues to simmer beneath the surface, the kidneys remain under siege. Because chronic low-grade inflammation is the silent architect of fibrosis. It thickens tissue, it stiffens vessels, it slowly transforms flexible living filtration units into rigid, inefficient structures. And this is where the next combination becomes powerful in a way most people underestimate. Nettle Dandelion and Turmeric. This is not a detox tea trend. This is anti-inflammatory strategy. Let's start with turmeric. Curcumin, its active compound, has been studied in more than 1,000 peer-reviewed publications for its ability to suppress NF-κB, one of the primary molecular switches that turns on inflammatory gene expression. When NF-κB remains chronically activated, which happens with aging, high blood pressure, insulin resistance, inflammatory markers like CRP and IL-6 rise. And when they rise, kidney tissue becomes vulnerable to microfibrosis. Multiple clinical reviews have shown that curcumin supplementation can reduce inflammatory markers by up to 44% in populations with chronic inflammatory stress. That reduction is not cosmetic. It directly influences vascular health and tissue survival. Nettle adds another layer. It contains bioactive compounds that help modulate cytokine activity while gently supporting fluid balance without aggressively stripping electrolytes. Unlike harsh diuretics, nettle works more as a regulator than a stimulant. Dandelion contributes mild diuretic properties while providing potassium and antioxidants supporting fluid balance without causing the abrupt electrolyte swings that can stress the kidneys further. I want to share the story of Robert, 67 years old, former firefighter. His filtration rate had plateaued at 55 for 2 years. Not catastrophic, but stuck. He was frustrated. "I feel like I'm doing everything," he told me. "We focused on inflammation. He began drinking a carefully prepared infusion-light turmeric with black pepper for absorption, a small amount of dried nettle and dandelion root, steeped gently consumed mid-morning away from meals. 3 months later, his inflammatory markers dropped significantly, and his kidney function stabilized instead of continuing its predictable downward slope. Stability in chronic disease is often a quiet victory. Here's the mechanism simplified. Imagine your kidney tissue like a sponge. When inflammation is high, that sponge stiffens and shrinks. Blood struggles to pass through. Filtration declines. Reduce inflammation and the sponge softens. Flow improves. Function becomes more efficient. It's not magic, it's tissue biology. Let me ask you something directly. Have you ever felt like you're doing the right things, drinking water, eating better, yet your numbers barely move? Comment inflammation below if you suspect something deeper might be happening. Because inflammation is rarely visible, but it is profoundly measurable. And here's what makes this step powerful. It prepares the terrain. If blood flow improves and oxidative stress drops, but inflammation remains active, the benefits are temporary. When inflammation calms, the vascular improvements from earlier steps last longer. The tissue environment becomes receptive to repair instead of resistant to it. But here's the truth, most people are not told. Even lowering inflammation and boosting nitric oxide still may not be enough if we don't activate the most potent vascular pathway available, the one capable of dramatically enhancing perfusion in a measurable short time frame. And what comes next is not just supportive, it can be decisive. But simply knowing this still isn't enough, because there is one final combination that may determine whether kidney decline stabilizes or continues towards something far more serious. Now we reach the turning point, the decision point, the moment where this stops being supportive and becomes strategic. Because improving circulation, lowering oxidative stress, and calming inflammation are powerful, but there is one pathway inside your body that can amplify all three at once. Hibiscus Beet Lemon. This is not a wellness trend. This is vascular activation. Beets are one of the richest natural sources of dietary nitrates. When you consume nitrates, your body converts them into nitrites and then into nitric oxide, the same molecule we discussed earlier, but through a more direct and potent pathway. Nitric oxide relaxes smooth muscle, in blood vessels expands microcapillaries, and improves perfusion at the tissue level. Clinical studies have shown that dietary nitrate supplementation can improve renal perfusion by 18 to 35% in individuals with early-stage vascular dysfunction. That's not marginal. That's measurable improvement in blood delivery to filtration units. Hibiscus adds a powerful cardiovascular dimension. Research published in multiple hypertension trials has demonstrated that hibiscus extract can reduce systolic blood pressure by an average of 7 to 10 millimeters of mercury. Lower pressure does not mean weaker flow, it means less strain on fragile glomeruli. It means less mechanical stress pushing against already aging filters. And lemon contributes antioxidant protection while supporting endothelial nitric oxide recycling, extending the vascular effect. Let me tell you about Thomas, 64, former accountant. His nephrologist told him something that shook him. We're watching this closely. That phrase stayed in his head. Watching what? Watching decline. His filtration rate had dropped into the low 50s. He asked me one question. Is there anything I can do before this gets worse? We focused on perfusion aggressively but safely. Morning empty stomach, fresh beet blended lightly with hibiscus infusion, and lemon 5 days a week. 30 days later, his blood pressure improved, his energy stabilized, and his lab values showed the first upward shift in years. Not dramatic, but directional. And direction matters. Here's the reality most people don't want to hear. Dialysis is not treatment. Dialysis is replacement. It does not heal kidney tissue. It substitutes for lost function. And the line between early decline and advanced disease is often crossed quietly 1 year at a time until suddenly options feel limited. So I want you to imagine two futures. In one, perfusion continues to decline, inflammation simmers, microfibrosis advances. In the other, you intervene early. You activate nitric oxide pathways. You reduce pressure. You protect vessels. The difference between those two paths is often a handful of consistent daily decisions. Now here is the key commitment: 30 days. Not forever, not extreme. 30 days of consistent vascular support in the morning. Because microcirculation responds faster than most people think when the right pathways are activated. But simply knowing this protocol still isn't enough, because there is one more critical factor, something that can completely cancel out nitric oxide production if ignored, and it may be part of your daily routine without you even realizing it. If you've stayed with me until this moment, that tells me something important. You care about your health, and more importantly, you care about protecting it before it's too late. Kidney decline is not a sudden event. It's a slow shift, a quiet drift. And the good news is this quiet decline can be met with quiet, consistent action. You don't need extreme measures. You don't need fear. You need awareness strategy and daily decisions that support blood flow, reduce inflammation, and protect those microscopic filters that work for you every second of the day. Start simple. Choose one of the combinations we discussed and commit to it consistently for 30 days. Monitor your blood pressure. Stay active. Prioritize sleep. And most importantly, don't ignore subtle signs: swelling, fatigue, changes in urine. Early attention is power. Late reaction is limitation. Your kidneys have an extraordinary ability to stabilize when given the right environment, but they cannot speak loudly. You must listen early. If this video helped you understand something you hadn't heard explained this clearly before, take a moment to save it. You may want to revisit these steps. And subscribe to the channel so you don't miss upcoming evidence-based updates on kidney health, circulation, blood sugar, and longevity. I share this information because prevention is stronger than treatment, and knowledge is one of the most powerful forms of protection. And remember this: your future health is not decided in a hospital room. It's shaped quietly in your kitchen, your habits, your mornings. The path toward dialysis is gradual, but so is the path toward resilience. You still have influence over which direction your body takes. And that, more than anything, should give you hope.